Whole grains are loaded full of antioxidants and actually help lower inflammation. Hey, everybody, I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. Again, one of these topics where there's a lot of misinformation out there, but when you look at the research, you look at the data, look at what the best experts discuss around the world, it becomes very, very clear that not only are grains in general relatively healthy, normal healthy part of our diet, have been for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and nothing has really changed in regards to that in the modern world. And the data continues to support it. But again, a lot of people are unaware of that because they're only looking at vitamins. They're not thinking in terms of total antioxidants or looking at anti-inflammatory markers or the data. And so therefore they see whole grains and they're like, well, they don't usually have a lot of vitamin C or a lot of vitamin E, so no antioxidants. But they're also forgetting that vitamin C is actually extremely easy to get in our diet from a lot of sources. And it is only one antioxidant. There are dozens and dozens of different antioxidants that we can utilize. A lot of them have different pathways by which they do it. And we don't necessarily have minimum requirements of many of those because they can do the same role, meaning there could be 17 different antioxidants available that can kind of do the same role. Therefore, we don't pick one of those and then set a minimum. Whereas in something with like vitamin C or vitamin E, which actually do tend to work in tandem, we don't necessarily set the minimums. Those do because vitamin C is a specific vitamin that we do need. It's also known as ascorbic acid. Interestingly enough, some animals produce it on their own. So most obligate carnivores, for example, surprisingly enough, well, not surprisingly really, they produce vitamin C just fine. Why? Because their diets may be lacking in it because there's pretty much none found in meat for the most part. So in a little bit they might come from the stomachs of the animals they eat because they've got plants and things in there. So they only get trace amounts. Therefore, they do tend to produce it. And that's something that we need to look at when it comes to a lot of these things in our diet. The things that are usually oftentimes very healthy for us are things that we found in abundance historically within our diets. We found in abundance, and therefore our body became dependent upon them because we didn't need to make them. Whereas then what's tended to develop is certain vitamins, not all antioxidants per se, but specific vitamins, we'll see the opposite. Meaning if you didn't have access to it in your diet, oftentimes your body will make that vitamin because all vitamins are made by living things. People do need to remember that. Those are organic compounds that aren't found just floating around. They're not like minerals. Minerals are minerals. Usually single elements are very uncomplicated versions of those elements that are just found there whether we existed or not. They would still be there, right, without multi-cell organisms and things. Whereas in our vitamins are things that we produce. So people forget that is kind of the difference. Vitamins are compounds that are generally made by us that are not individual minerals. So in the case of that, they produce it. Whereas we do not, so therefore we require it from plants, right? We require it from plants. And that is how we generally get it. Whereas in things like B12 tends to come from our animal products, right? So, again, kind of making the case that we are obligate, kind of our omnivores, aren't we? When you really look at our nutrition profile, we're omnivores who are plant-based, meaning we'll always be healthiest when we get most of our calories from plants, but there can be benefits to small amounts of lean animal source foods in our diet, okay? But back over to that point, antioxidants, they're full of them. And oftentimes they're in the form of various phytonutrients. Okay, so a lot of phytonutrients, that's oftentimes what we're looking for. Okay, because a lot of those have anti-inflammatory properties, they have antioxidant properties, and lo and behold, we usually find that people whose diets are very high in whole grains tend to have low inflammatory markers, right? We tend to see reduced oxidative stress in their body. So it's very clear all those antioxidants are working quite fine in people who consume those foods. And again, some of those particular whole grains do get a bad name, but oftentimes, funny enough, the ones that are really high in antioxidants are the ones that people are often afraid of: wheat, corn, things like that. Whereas in things like brown rice, oats are a little further down the list, but they are certainly full of them. And those are the popular ones. I don't actually know off the top of my head how some of the less popular ones stack up. And quite frankly, they probably won't matter that much because it's not worth sourcing them. Okay, unless you just really happen to enjoy them, there's no reason to find these other exotic grains. We can get what we need from these main ones. Always a point I like to make, because of people's budgets and me having an audience of a wide diversity of economic situations. I always remind people you don't have to have all these bougie foods and exotic foods to be healthy, right? You don't have to go source quinoa. Normal brown rice, normal oats work just fine from the grocery store. Perfectly fine, perfectly healthy. And again, the data would show it. The same thing with a lot of other stuff that happens. Whole grains are inversely correlated with type 2 diabetes, inversely correlated with obesity. Okay, but yes, they are absolutely helpful with the primary killers, and that's cardiovascular disease, cancers. And so again, the anti-inflammatory properties and the antioxidants playing a role. Because again, oxidative stress, kind of a big deal. Inflammation, kind of a big deal. But they also help regulate things like blood sugar, help keep insulin sensitivity higher, which is just all around a good thing for all of that. So the thing to remember with a lot of this is that, yes, whole grains are staples in a healthy diet. Like, we handle them well. We've eaten them for millennia, and they've always been healthy for us, and they still appear to be. And again, plenty of the really healthy cultures eat them. But there are also very healthy cultures that do include plenty of refined grains, specifically white rice. Because still, at the end of the day, we're still a starch-based species, and we tend to do pretty well when we get most of our calories from starches. Although, again, we could make the case for the little bit wholer versions of some of those grains. Obviously being better, again, due to the fiber content, the extra antioxidant content, things like that. Right? So again, probably the healthier choice, but there are plenty of people who eat white rice every day who live to be 100 years old and never get cancer. Right? So not necessarily a problem. So we're simply talking about healthier versus healthy, right, in the case of something like this. And the thing is, with a lot of those other exotic foods, a little side note on that, there's no reason to think a lot of them are actually really healthier. They're just exotic and different, and then therefore, marketable, kind of, bougie fitness, right? All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.